I have a fascinating tale to share with you today, and it surrounds the Grand Canyon, a conspiracy around the Grand Canyon. Now, many of you are not going to believe it, and that's okay, but many of you will. And that's why we need to question, especially the restricted areas that nobody is allowed into. And this tale raises so many questions, it's almost too detailed to be made up or a hoax. Stick with me, listen to the end, and comment below and tell me what you think. In 1909, the Arizona Gazette published a captivating article about the discovery of a mysterious cave in the Grand Canyon, which contained Egyptian artifacts, a finding that should have been the greatest archaeological discovery of a lifetime. However, it would instead become the biggest hoax our nation has ever witnessed, or just made the most brilliant cover-up of all time. The original story claims a team of explorers headed by a Smithsonian-backed adventurer GE Concaid and a Professor S.A. Jordan led a team into the Grand Canyon, which some claim is a current-day restricted area of the Grand Canyon. The area is permanently closed to anyone without a specialty permit and is a no-fly zone. It is interesting to note that extreme secrecy measures have been taken regarding those parts of the Grand Canyon. Kincaid and Jordan's group of explorers report to have found a network of man-made tunnels high above the Colorado River. In those tunnels, they found an archaeological treasure and could have changed history or maybe added to it as we know it. And exactly who is GE Concaid? He was said to have been a respected man, the first white child born in Idaho and an explorer for all of his life, and reportedly worked for the Smithsonian for over 30 years as an adventurer, that is, if he was a real person. And then there was Professor S.A. Jordan, who was said to have been a scientist for the Smithsonian. It is also important to note that the Smithsonian has publicly denied the story outright over 100 years later, and denied any records verifying the existence of Kincaid or Professor Jordan. The Arizona Gazette appears to have been the only newspaper to have ever published the story. No records can confirm the existence of either Kincaid or Jordan. Now I'm going to read to you exactly what was written in the Arizona Gazette. This is said to have been written by Kincaid. First, I would impress that the cavern is nearly inaccessible. The entrance is 1,486 feet down the sheer canyon wall. It is located on government land, and no visitor will be allowed there under penalty of trespass. The scientists wish to work unmolested, without fear of archaeological discoveries being disturbed by curio or relic hunters. A trip there would be fruitless, and the visitors would be sent on his way. The story of how I found the cavern has been related, but in paragraph. I was journeying down the Colorado River in a boat, alone, looking for mineral. Some 42 miles up the river from El Tovar Crystal Canyon, I saw on the east wall stains in the sedimentary formation about 2,000 feet above the riverbed. There are no trail to this point, but I finally reached it with great difficulty. Above a shelf which hid it from view from the river was the mouth of the cave. There are steps leading from this entrance some 30 yards to what was, at the time the cavern was inhabited, the level of the river. When I saw the chisel marks on the wall inside the entrance, I became interested. Securing my gun and went in. During this trip, I went back several hundred feet along the main passage till I came to the crypt in which I discovered the mummies. One of these I stood up and photographed by flashlight. I gathered a number of relics, which I carried down the Colorado to Yuma, from whence I shipped them to Washington with details of the discovery. Following this, the exploration was undertaken. The passages. The main passage is about 12 feet wide, narrowing to 9 feet toward the further end. About 57 feet from the entrance, the first side passages branch off to the right and left, along which on both sides are a number of rooms about the size of ordinary living rooms of today, though some are about 30 to 40 feet by square. These are entered by oval-shaped doors and are ventilated by around air spaces through the walls into the passages. The walls are about 3 feet inches in thickness. The passages are chiseled or hewn as straight as could be laid out by an engineer. The ceilings of many of the rooms converge to a center. The side passages near the entrance run at a sharp angle from the main hall, but toward the rear they gradually reach a right angle in direction. The shrine. Over 100 feet from the entrance is the cross hall, several hundred feet in long, in which are found the idol or image of the people's god, sitting cross-legged with a lotus flower or lily in each hand. The cast of the face is oriental, and the carvings this cavern. The idol almost resembles Buddha, though the scientists are not certain as to what religious worship it represents. Taking into consideration everything found thus far, it is possible that this worship most resembles the ancient peoples of Tibet. Surrounding this idol are smaller images, some very beautiful in form, others crooked neck and distorted shapes, symbolical probably of good and evil. There are 2 large cactus with protruding arms, one on each side of the dais on which the god squats. All this is carved out of hard rock resembling marble. In the opposite corner of this cross hall were found tools of all descriptions made of copper. These people undoubtedly knew the lost art of hardening this metal, which has been sought by chemicals for centuries without result. On a bench running around the workroom was a charcoal and other material probably used in the process. There is also slag and other stuff similar to matte, showing that these ancient smelted ores, but so far no trace of where or how this was done has been discovered, nor the origin of the ore. Among the other finds are vases or urns and cups of copper and gold, made very artistic in design. The pottery work includes enameled ware and glazed vessels. Another passage leads to granaries, such as are found in the Oriental temples. They contain seeds of various kinds. One very large storehouse has not yet been entered, as it is 12 feet high and can be reached only from above. The 2 copper hooks extended on the edge, which indicates that some sort of ladder was attached. These granaries are rounded, as the materials of which they are constructed. I think it is very hard cement. A gray metal is also found in this cavern, which puzzles the scientists, for its identity has not been established. It resembles platinum. Strewn over the floor everywhere are what people call cat's eyes, a yellow stone of no great value. Each one is engraved with the head of the Malay type. The hieroglyphs. On all of the urns or walls and over doorways and tablets of stone which were found by the image are the mysterious hieroglyphs, the key to which the Smithsonian Institute hopes yet to discover. The engraving on the tables probably has something to do with the religion of the people. Similar hieroglyphs have been found in southern Arizona. Among the pictorial writings, only 2 animals are found. One is of prehistoric type. The crypt. The tomb or crypt in which the mummies were found is one of the largest of the chambers, the walls slanting back at an angle of about 35 degrees. On these are tiers of mummies, each one occupying a separate hewn shelf. At the head of each is a small bench, on which is found copper cups and pieces of broken swords. Some of the mummies are covered with clay, and all are wrapped in a bark fabric. The urns or cups on the lower tiers are crude, while as the higher shelves are reached, the urns are finer in design, showing a later stage of civilization. It is worthy of note that all the mummies examined so far have proved to be male, no children or females being buried here. This leads to the belief that this exterior section was the warriors' barracks. Among the discoveries, no bones of animals have been found, no skins, no clothing, no bedding. Many of the rooms are bare but for water vessels. One room, about 40 by 700 feet, was probably the main dining hall, for cooking utensils are found there. What these people lived on is a problem, though it is presumed that they came south in the winter and farmed in the valleys, going back north in the summer. Upwards of 50,000 people could have lived in the caverns comfortably. One theory is that the present Indian tribes found in Arizona are descendants of the serfs or slaves of the people which inhabited the cave, undoubtedly a good many thousands of years before the Christian era. A people lived here which reached a high stage of civilization. The human history is full of gaps. Professor Jordanich is much enthused over the discovery and believes that the find will prove of incalculable value in archaeological work. One thing I have not spoken of may be of interest. There's one chamber of the passageway to which was not ventilated, and when we approached it, a deadly snaky smell struck us. Our light would not penetrate the gloom, and until stronger ones are available, we will not know what the chamber contains. Some say snakes, but others boo-hoo this idea and think it may contain a deadly gas or chemicals used by the ancients. No sounds are heard, but it smells snaky just the same. The whole underground installation gives one of shaky nerves the creeps. The gloom is like a weight on one's shoulders, and our flashlights and candles only make the darkness blacker. Imagination can revel in conjectures and ungodly daydreams back through the ages that have elapsed till the mind reels dizzily in space. Now, before I go further, I want you to listen to what witness claims to have seen while unknowingly paramotoring over the Grand Canyon. And this is his testimony.
I was researching the ancient Egyptians were in the North Rim. There's a mountain there called Mount Isis that the government named Mount Isis. I didn't even know that you weren't allowed to fly through the Grand Canyon. After my flight was about 2 hours. And after my flight, I landed and there was a park ranger that threatened me. I pointed to the parking lot, the North Rim parking lot. I said, there's no signs anywhere that says you can't fly paramotor. I flew for about 2 hours. My main area was Mount Isis. If you zoom into Mount Isis, you can see it kind of has the shape of a temple. Even it looks like it has a doorway with a hieroglyph of a duck on the side of it.
Really?
You can actually see a door, a square door. About 3 miles back towards the rim, there is a sphere that sticks up.
Yeah.
And it has a bird head on top of it. It's carved. It's really ornate. And then it has like the wings fast back, and it looks like someone put charcoal in grooves of the wings to show detail of the wings. And it's about the size of 6 vehicles. It's big, and you can see it from a distance. It looks like it was created to where if the water level was higher in the Grand Canyon and ships were going through, it would show the strength and power of the Egyptians. It looks like a sphinx. There does appear to be a sphinx on this temple. There are other carvings, and they look like someone had shot at them, maybe with a helicopter or something. Yeah, there was definitely bullet holes in a lot of the temple surrounding. About 200 feet down, there's carvings of pharaohs. There's carvings of cats. You would have to be about 200 yards back to actually really get a good view of what you're looking at. I don't know who they would be for. Maybe ancient aliens or something, maybe. We're talking 20,000 years ago. I don't think the water level would be high enough to even see these carvings. And it makes me wonder who they were for and who put them there. It would have to be someone in like a flying machine, most likely. I flew right next to him. I saw a leg sticking out. I flew right over a leg, and then I saw another leg. There's one that looks like a sphinx of a woman, and you can see the headdress, and then there's black stripes on the headdress that goes up, and the eyes are green, and it's beautiful. It was mostly concentrated around Mount Isis area. There appear to be other smaller temples like this. I don't know if you can see this picture right here. This is a temple I discovered in Arizona. You can see like windows down the side and looks like rails. A lot of things like that in the Grand Canyon. But Mount Isis seemed to be the center point. And you can see a doorway up high, and on the other side, real low, you see these 2 pillars kind of like they had fallen in, and another doorway that goes inside. And then on the backside of Mount Isis, it's really long, and there's doorways and windows. But the doorways appear to be about 20 feet tall. Like in Egypt, you'll see statues in the upright sitting position, and they look like pharaohs. They're all along the side of Mount Isis. And you can actually zoom in. If you know how to use Google Earth, you can zoom in, tilt Google Earth a little bit, and you can actually see them. Everything I suspected was real. I've lived in Alaska. I heard about the Blue Pyramid in Alaska. I've flown all over Alaska, and I've seen some amazing things there that kind of fall in line with the Egyptians. I don't know what ancient civilizations were up there though, but I found some really neat things up there. But that made me believe that the Egyptians started in the Grand Canyons. I've seen helmets, swords, carvings. I actually found a Spanish conquistador helmet, a breastplate, and a sword, and I donated it to the Lost Dutchman Museum in Apache Junction. I found a giant skull with a helmet, and it's sitting up on a rock right next to the doorway. The helmet has an eagle on top of it. There's like a little post, and then an eagle with its wings spread apart.
Very interesting what that modern day explorer experienced flying over the Grand Canyon. Makes you wonder and question, right? Well, in connection with this story, I want to talk about the native connection. In the Hopi tribe tradition, it is told that their ancestors once lived in an underworld in the Grand Canyon, but something happened and it caused a division amongst the people. The tribe was split, with one side being the people of one heart, good, and the people of two hearts, bad. Machedo, who was their chief, counseled them to leave the underworld, but there was no way out. The chief then caused a tree to grow up and pierce the roof of the underworld, and the people of one heart climbed out. They lived by the Red River, which is the Colorado, and grew grain and corn. They sent out a message to the Temple of the Sun asking the blessings of peace and goodwill and rain for the people of one heart. The messenger never returned, but today in the Hopi villages at sundown, the old men of the tribe emerge out on the housetops, gazing towards the sun, looking for the messenger. When he returns, their lands and ancient dwelling places will be restored to them. That is the tradition. Also, among the engravings of the animals in the caves, it is seen the image of a heart over the spot where it is located. The legend was learned by W.E. Rollins, the artist, during a year he spent with the Hopi. There are two theories of the origin of Egyptians. One is that they came from Asia, another that the racial cradle was in the Upper Nile region. Herein, an Egyptologist believed in the Indian origin of the Egyptians. If the discoveries in the Grand Canyon are true, they could throw light on human evolution and prehistoric ages. In the later part of the 20th century, detailed research by Karl Munich uncovered a mathematical system employed by ancients for the exact placement of the Egyptian pyramids in alignment with certain star systems. The same code can be applied to other such structures wherever they are found. His findings revealed that the Isis Temple in the Grand Canyon must be a major archaeological site, lined up as precisely as it is with the Great Pyramid of Gaza. So my question for you is, what is real, and who do we believe? The Smithsonian is a renowned institution and the keepers of American history. While we have two unknown and possibly made-up individuals who claim ties with the Smithsonian, it is also a valid point to note that the Smithsonian did have adventurers and explorers on their payroll in our early history of America. Otherwise, how could they have been proper history keepers without people actively out there looking for artifacts and treasures? And we have the Hopi traditions and origin stories that have been passed down through the ages. They have never changed and tied back to this mysterious caves and the ancients they called the Anasazi. What we do know is that it is an undisputed scientific fact that there does exist a large grouping of promontories with curious names in the park. The high points and summits are in the Haunted Canyon and Trinity Creek area of the park and include geological formations like Osiris, Isis, Shiva, and Horus temples, the Tower of Set, and the pyramids of Ra and Cheops, all legendary figures of ancient Egypt and India. And who is responsible for naming of these sites? No one truly knows, but it was believed they were well named before the 1909 article, and most likely by General John Wesley Powell, who led the first government-funded passage through the Grand Canyon during the 1869 Powell Geographic Expedition. Now, what is really interesting, Powell was also the first director of the Smithsonian Bureau of Ethnology, a founding member of the National Geographic Society, and a member of the Cosmos Club. It is believed he gave these landmarks their names. Now you have to ask yourself, why? Why would a well-educated, no-nonsense military man name landmarks he saw after Egyptian and Hindu deities? Is it a coincidence? There are also official documents regarding these restricted areas. And this passage is actually from one of those documents, and I'm going to read it word for word. The following geographical areas and/or roads within the Grand Canyon National Park are closed to public use or are restricted by specific activities and/or specific times for specific activities. Hopi Fire Tower and Access Road. Maricopa Point Endangered Plant Area. Hopi Salt Mines, extending from River Mile 62 to River Mile 62.5 on the southeast side of the Colorado River, precisely where the mentioned landmarks are located. Hance Mine, south of Hance Rapid Furnace Flats from 71.0 to mile 71.3 on the north side of the Colorado River, and the Anasazi Bridge. Now keep in mind, these mines are not active mining operations and may never have been mines, and could be ancient man-made tunnels allegedly made by the Hopi. The official document goes on to discreetly command that nobody is permitted to enter any cave or mine at work at any time ever without a permit. And in addition, artificial features which compromise a twilight zone and a zone of darkness will be managed as caves as per the Federal Cave Resources Protection Act of 1988. Permits required to satisfy the section may be applied for and/or obtained through Backcountry Permits Office. And there is more. Legislation was passed in 1987 that restricts the airspace over the canyon, along with only two other national parks, Yosemite and Hakalaka, supposedly to provide for a substantial restoration of the natural quiet and experience of the park and protection of the public health and safety from adverse effects associated with aircraft overflight. So basically, no noise from machines over the park, from aircraft, are allowed. Before I close, there is some interesting information that I want to leave you with. There was a Professor David Starr Jordan who was closely affiliated with the Smithsonian Institute for over 30 years, from the 1880s until 1910, which included ethnological expeditions on the Colorado River into the Grand Canyon. According to earlier census records, Starr was not his given middle name, and it did not become legal until later in life when he selected it. Jordan served as a president of Stanford University and was a believer in eugenics. Jordan's fanatical belief of the pure race led him to write the 1899 essay, A Study of the Decay of Races Through the Survival of the Unfit, in which he illustrated his irrationality regarding race degradation. It was Jordan who led a nationwide sterilization program which was clearly a crime against humanity, and in 2003, many buildings in California were shamefully stripped of his name, and the California legislature expressed its profound regret over the state's past role in the eugenics movement. It is not surprising that the Smithsonian would have commissioned him in the past to distort the historical narrative or seek to distance themselves from him now. So my question, what if Professor David Starr really was S.A. Jordan and they purposely changed his name for this article? The Hopi have traditions and stories that talk about the origins and the ancient ones known as the Anasazi, and it all coincidentally ties perfectly into what Kincaid and Jordan discovered in the Grand Canyon. So, is it a hoax, or is this one of the greatest cover-ups of all time?